Good morning. This is April 28th. It's Tuesday, and we're going to work on ratios today. But first, we have a couple things to take care of. First, the little joke here. I just finished up watching John Krasinski's Some Good News report on YouTube today, and it's a good one. They every day they thank the hospital workers, and I thought this was an appropriate little joke for that. Where do you take someone who has been injured in a peekaboo accident? To the ICU. So that's our lame joke of the day. Probably not the last one though. All right, so we been looking at a lot of information on the news about this COVID-19 coronavirus issue, and it's severely affected everyone's lives. I can't think of anyone in the United States or anyone in the world, maybe even, that has not been affected by this in some manner. And we're pretty lucky in our little town that we haven't had to deal with too much of the symptoms and the situations that are in the most severely affected places. But we're certainly affected by it because we're sitting at home and doing online learning and not going out to stores. I heard recently that in some towns they're restricting no children to enter any stores, and that's you guys. You guys don't get to go and look at all the cool Legos and Polly Pockets and things that you always want to go look at, and the more mature things like foam baseball bats that you can whack each other over the head with. So you're really missing out. That's too bad. But I want to point something out here because this is what we're talking about today is ratios and rates, and the situation on the news is often you hear all the bad news, and that's why it's important to focus on the actual facts, or at least the statistics that you can help interpret. Sixth grade education is pretty important in math because of some of the statistics and some of the mathematics that we do. It helps you understand some of the most simplest data that's out there, such as what's on the screen right now. This is a report for overall infection rates with different age groups, and this is just a screenshot of it, so you can see a little bit of it. But I've highlighted the part, or I've screenshot the actual, focused on the part that says kids under 10 years old. These are statistics from 4 different countries, and you'll see that in just a minute. Well, it's actually listed there: Spain, Italy, South Korea, and China. And they're reporting on what things are happening with COVID-19 and the under 10 ages, but then also as you go up and get older. Our kids in these countries are actually faring much better than any other age rates. In fact, you can see right here across Italy, South Korea, and China, there have so far been no reported fatalities among children under 10 years old. So if kids get the virus, they're not dying from it, thank goodness. But the reason why I'm pointing this out is because they use the word rate a lot. In this case, a rate of 26%, and they associate the rate with a percent. Earlier in the year, we talked about how fractions and percents and decimals are all representations of the same quantities, but they're in different written formats. And in this case, you're talking about a rate, which over the next 3 days, we're going to be talking about rates as fractions mostly. And this is a rate written as a percent. 26% can be written as a fraction as well. We won't go into that because that's not as important for today's lesson. But you also see that ratios, such as this one right here, children 0 to 9, that's actually a range, not a ratio. But ratios are comparing two quantities, like 34 out of 129 cases. So in other words, there's 129 cases of COVID-19 among children 0 to 9 years, but 34 of those kids resulted in hospitalization. And that's a rate of 26%. So they changed the ratio into a rate, the ratio of 34 compared to 129, and then it becomes a percentage when you actually divide that out and turn it into a rate. So let's get rid of that. I want to show you the graph that this comes from. This information comes from this bar graph, and you can see the different countries. South Korea, China, Spain, and Italy are represented by different colors. Italy is in the news a lot because they were slow to react and social distance, and so they're having much more difficulty with the virus spreading. 0 to 9, no deaths. This is just deaths. No deaths among that category, that age range. 10 to 19, it becomes a little bit more severe. I imagine 0.2 might be one or two students, one or two kids, age 10 to 19, and then a few more there in Spain. We don't have U.S. data, or at least I couldn't find it. Yeah, I didn't search very long for it, but maybe we'll revisit that as we go through here. But you can see that age ranges here. This is fatality. These are deaths of people that actually got it. So this is the percentage compared of the ones that actually got it and then the ones that died. And this goes all the way up to 20%. So if you had 100 people in Italy, 20 of those people would have, or 100 people that got it, 20 of those people would have died from it. So that's not a good situation. But in our country, we're keeping it a lot lower. I think overall, for all age ranges, we're around the 1.38%, 1.4%. I don't know if that's world data or U.S. data, but anyway, those are real-life applications for rates. This is why we learn rates, so that as adults, we understand what a chart like this looks like. So you, of course, will get more learning on that, but you can see if you didn't understand all the pieces of this, this might look like, oh my gosh, as you get to be 80 years old, you have 20% chance of dying. Well, remember, it's 20% of the people that actually get it, that contract it, have a higher potential to die, and that's in Italy. South Korea, much better. Okay, all right, let's get rid of that. This week, you're going to be doing some learning through ratios, rates, and proportions. We'll talk about the difference of those. That's right down here, by the way. And then we're going to start at the end of the week with angles and triangles. This is a lot of fun in the classroom. I don't know how much fun it's going to be through video and distance learning, but I like to do those in class. We do a little bit of cutting and pasting, which is a great kindergarten skill that we bring back in the 6th grade. Just a quick reminder, I'm getting some good reports on Freckle from some of you. Sounds like, according to Mrs. House's videos, that we need to be working a little harder on Lexia, which is the reading equivalent of Freckle, and then your math or science assignments. Now, I see a lot of people checking in on Fact Practice, doing a couple Fact Practice things a day. That's great. That's good practice. But the math assignments on there, and then there are a couple of the science ones that I've put on, those are really good to stay fresh and keep working, and maybe even performing a little bit ahead of us that we're doing here. Math Minutes, remember that's online only. That's kind of up to you to do that. If you turn in your answer sheet for the next 3 weeks, this is April 27th through May 3rd through May 8th, and then I put down here, we're going to do math this week. We're going to do some science, and I've got a couple cool things we're going to do with that, because we're kind of missing out on our rockets this year, and we might be able to. I've got some ideas for summer or the beginning of the year with our rockets, so hopefully we can still get back to those, because that's one of the best. That's the best part of the year for both of us. So anyway, Math Minutes will be offered as extra credit from 90 through 100. If you do those 10 Math Minutes, you get a point for each. That's 10 free points I apply to your score. Remember, if you're worried about grades, grades went out, then you should probably be doing some corrections. If you're confused about what corrections to do, email me. I'll put together a real quick report. Most of you should have gotten that. Well, all of you should have gotten that last week about what to do, and we'll have a plan of attack. Okay? Most crucial, let's do priorities, is probably the bottom. Well, that's definitely the bottom rows here. That's what I want to see the most from you, because those are the skills that you need to have in order to prepare for 7th grade. We would spend more time on things like area and perimeter in the classroom, but we'll do the best we can here. And then also, the second priority would probably be the assignments. Okay, I would save Math Minute to last. You're doing that already with the Freckle assignments, but they're kind of fun. I think they're kind of fun. Some of you I know do not like them. All right, let's talk about racing ratios. That's the assignment for today. You are given a little chart up at the front, and these are the trophies: first place, second place, third place, fourth place, fifth place. And then they've given you these ratios down at the bottom. So you've got 1 lap in 2 minutes, 2 laps in 5 minutes, 3 laps in 8 minutes, 4 laps in 11 minutes, and 5 laps in 14 minutes. So those are ratios. They're comparing laps to minutes. When I talk about this in the classroom, I almost always mention the fact that we have a ratio of girls to boys. One of the ratios I've been working with a lot in the classrooms is the number of 6th graders per 5th graders. When I prepare a packet, I'm not sure I'll get this right, but my homeroom has 9 6th graders. Mrs. McPherson's has 8. Mrs. Gates 7, and Miss Poland 6. I'm sure I've messed that up, but anyway, it's 9, 8, 7, 6, and I have to make sure I have the right distributed there. But we all have 15 students. I think there's one class that has 16. But we compare. For a math teacher, my numbers aren't very good in my head right now. Anyway, we compare the number of 6th graders to 5th graders. In my homeroom, I have 9 6th graders, but only 6 5th graders, and so it's 9 to 6 is my ratio. Ratios it's important to think about order, because if I say 9 to 6 and I've mentioned 6th graders first, that means the 9 matches up with the 6th graders and the 6 matches up with the 5th graders. So you have ratios that have to match up. We'll look at that with problem number 1 here. So the chart shows the record set in last year's final car race. How do these year's racers compare? So we have, this is last year's race, and Todd's going to drive 6 laps in 16 minutes. What record did that equal? So now we have to take Todd's ratio of 6 laps to 16 minutes. I'm going to abbreviate. It looks like 61 apps, so we have to be careful with our how we represent this. So we have 6 to 16. Now, most of you that have been doing fractions, most of you that have that good 6th grade skill of number recognition know that 6/16 needs to be reduced. So let's just go ahead and do that. We've got 6/16. We're going to reduce it down. What goes into both of those? Well, 2 definitely does. 2 goes into 6 3 times, and it goes into 16 8 times, so we've got 3 8s. Okay, this is the ratio, or the rate when we compare laps to minutes. So it's 3 laps per 8 minutes. Let's go ahead and put laps and minutes in there, and that stays the same on top and bottom. It's 3 to 8. So did we have anything like that on the top chart? Let's look at the question again. Todd drove 6 laps in 16 minutes. What record did that equal? So Todd's was 3 laps in 8 minutes. Do we have anything here that matches that? Yeah, absolutely. This one is exactly the same. So he equaled 3rd place. So in here you would write Todd drove 6 laps in 16 minutes. What record did that equal? And you'd write 3rd place. Pretty simple. Let's go skip down to number 7. It's the last one. Well, no, it's not the last one, but it's pretty close. Cindy drove 4 laps in 10 minutes. What is the highest place she could have won? So we have to compare our 4 laps to 10 minutes. So this is number 7, and we're talking about Cindy. And Cindy drove 4 laps, 10 minutes. We're just reducing the fraction. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So you have 2 laps per 5 minutes. And then we look at our chart here. Let's get that up there. 2 laps in 5 minutes. Well, 2 laps in 5 minutes is second place. That ties second place. The question asks us, Cindy drove 4 laps in 10 minutes. What is the highest place she could have won? Well, the highest would have been second, right? Okay, so we would write in there second place. Okay, this shouldn't take you very long. There's only 9 questions there, and most of it's just simply reducing fractions. You're looking at the ratio part of this is just the simple comparison of laps to minutes, so this one shouldn't be too hard. Good luck. Feel free to ask me any questions via email, and I'll get the Math Minute shared on Google Classroom soon.